Okay, again, welcome everyone to our webinar today. We have Gale Force here that is going to make a presentation about the benefits of post-buy reconciliation and analysis, a topic that I know many agencies wrestle with in terms of process, making sure that we're doing it, making sure that we're getting it right. So I'm really looking forward to their presentation. I'm going to turn it over to them in a couple of minutes. Just so everybody knows, we are recording. So if someone was not able to make it today, a colleague or so, we are going to share this with you in some way. We're not sure if we'll post it yet or email it out, but you can share that content with them so they can benefit from it as well. And then, as most of you may have seen in the email, Gale Force is a strategic partner of Second Wind, and there may be some of you online that currently use the system. There may be some of you that don't use the system or are looking for a system. So we work with Gale Force as a strategic partner to not only bring content, but to bring, their platform to agencies who may need to use it. So once again, thank you for joining us. We're probably going to spend, the next 45 minutes to an hour together. I will keep my eye on the chat. So if you have questions, please feel free to type those into chat and I'll respond to the ones I can. If I can't answer it, we'll wait till the end and then we'll go through all of those. But if you have a burning question as they go through the slides or something that you'd really like answered at that moment, please feel free, to come on mic, raise your hand, we'll call on you and we can answer that question or address that question during the presentation. So if there is no questions or any comments before we begin, I would like to turn it over to Heather and Kevin specifically from Gale Force. They are going to be doing the presenting today. And I'm just going to ask Heather and Kevin if you guys would just take a moment to introduce yourself and let the attendees know a little bit about what you do at Gale Force. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. So my name's Heather Broda. I'm the VP of Client Support here at Gale Force. Just a little bit of background about me. I've been in the industry, give or take, about 30 years now. My first foray into the business was as an intern at an ad agency, and I always say my first real job was auditing invoices. And this was back in the day where this was all a manual process. So we've come a long way since then. But since my agency days, I spent the better part of 25 of those years on the support side for software, worked for Arbitron, and prior to that, Smart Plus, if anybody remembers that software back in the day. And then Arbitron eventually got bought by Nielsen. But I've been with Gale Force here for going on 5 years and just love the culture and love the fact that we're a small but mighty team. We all wear many hats here, but happy to share this presentation with you today. And nice to meet everyone virtually. And I'll pass it off to Kevin.
All right, thanks, Heather. My name is Kevin Fife. I am the VP of Client Experience here at Gale Force. I've been with Gale Force Digital, I guess it'll be 7 years in June, so I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary. Also, similarly to Heather, I also worked for Nielsen and Arbitron and Smart Plus. That's where Heather and I met all those years ago. I also had a stint at a TV station. So between Heather and I, we have experience on all sides of the equation. And we've been doing this a lot longer than we, want to admit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for doing that for the introductions. It's nice to hear the cumulative amount of experience that both of you have in our industry or a very closely related industry. So if I'm not wrong, Heather, you're going to present the slides. So
Yeah,
if you'd like to begin with the presentation, please go right ahead.
absolutely. So yeah, today we're going to talk about the benefits of post-buy reconciliation and analysis. We'll just get started here. I can get this slide to advance. Hold on. There we go. Maybe. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So some of the reasons why you might want to consider auditing invoices, and primarily today we're talking about broadcast invoices, TV, radio, cable, is that Obviously it all boils down to the bottom line. If we are missing dollars that we're placing, we're spending all of this time crafting the perfect buy, making sure we've got the right day part mix, the right station mix, the right programs that we're buying. But that only goes so far if it's not executed by the stations properly. So, we know things happen. We're in an industry that's ever moving. We're going into political season. So, dollars being missed and that dollar value not being added back to a schedule for our client, that's missed commission for the agency. And we want to make sure that we don't leave any dollar on the table, that we get all that money back in the schedule if at all possible. So that's one reason that you might want to audit it. So you can have the best intentions of getting that buy on the schedule, but things happen, things get bumped, technical issues happen. So we want to kind of have a pulse point on how that buy is progressing, if the station is delivering what we've ordered, and if not, we can make adjustments accordingly. We don't want to be 3 months into an annual buy and find out that they've been running my commercial in the same break, leading from one program to another and not really being in the program. That's an example. Another reason why you might want to consider auditing invoices is, are we getting the correct copy out there? A good example is, I remember when I was a buyer, listening to an NFL game and hearing my ad and cringing because the ad was for a sale that ended the previous week. Oh my gosh. We're going out to hundreds of thousands of people, and it doesn't give a good look to our client if what's being delivered on the air is not what we intended it to be. Was it the fault of the station? Was it our fault? Those things are questions that, run through your mind when you hear that ad in an NFL game broadcasting to the entire DMA or across the state, even in this case, that commercial was, not accurate, whether the sale ended, whether it was bad messaging that was something from, a previous campaign, whatever the case may be. Another reason why we might want to audit is, obviously we want to fully service that client from start to end. And, this may give you a competitive advantage with, your competing agencies. Let's just face it. If you're offering a service for that same commission that your competitor down the street isn't offering, well, guess what? Your client's going to get more value for the dollar by using you versus maybe your competitor. Another reason why, obviously this is a tactic, we're media buyers, we're going to negotiate. And if we find out that, hey, as I mentioned, we find out that, that ad that I placed in, Fallon is running, in the break leading outside of Fallon every single time, then I might have, some negotiating room to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to pay full price for this. I think I deserve to have a reduced rate because it's not running in program. It's running in the break leading from one program to another. And again, you might find that, hey, even though I bought it Monday through Friday, I might find that my ads are running, only Mondays and Tuesdays, whatever the case might be. So it might be a negotiating tactic for future buys to say, hey, I saw what you were doing, and I don't really like how my ads are being placed. Let's talk about this and maybe make some adjustments in future buys. The other thing is, if your rep knows that you're auditing their buys, guess what? They're going to pay a lot more attention to where those buys are getting placed because they know that they're not going to be able to slip something through by just, you looking at the bottom line of an invoice and knowing that, hey, yeah, we ordered $1,000 and that's what we got. We're going to pay it. They find out that you're auditing those invoices, you're reaching out to them to say, hey, these are dollars that got missed. These are things that ran wrong. I need some make goods for that. Again, you're stewarding that buy from start to finish, and you're making sure that your client is getting value for their dollars. And again, that's building trust over time with those clients because they know that you're looking out for them with their best interests at heart. You're making sure that things are running correctly. And if they're not running correctly, maybe we're getting added value for those things. Something ran late, something ran early, ran out of time period, ran the wrong copy. I'm going to be the first one to ask that rep to give me a credit or give me another ad for the same value to get that messaging back out to the potential customers for that client. And so why is invoice reconciliation in those clients' best interests? Well, again, we're making sure that that budget's going to be spent effectively. I don't want to leave any money on the table for my own purposes. I want to make sure that I'm getting commission for every dollar that that client has budgeted. If my client sees that, hey, you were $10,000 short, and okay, that's money that's going to be lost. Maybe I can't get that back in the mix, and maybe I'm going to lose commission off of a chunk of budget, or maybe my budgets are going to get reduced because the client's saying, hey, you weren't stewarding the buy very correctly. We had all this money miss, you didn't catch it, so I'm going to spend that money elsewhere, or I'm just not going to spend it at all. We talked about making sure that those ads are running the correct times. If I'm a client and I'm like, hey, I really want to be in Good Morning America, and I find out that every single time we're being bought in Good Morning America, we're not running in Good Morning America, then I'm going to be a little upset with the schedule, because sometimes you're providing those schedules to the clients to sign off on too. There were many times that we would give a client, because there was always some local car dealership that wanted to see their ad and they wanted to see their face, in whatever particular program was being bought. And we want to make sure that, they can anticipate that, hey, yeah, I'm going to see my ad in the programs that you've provided to me, and make sure that those ads are airing, obviously in the correct time periods, but with that correct approved copy. Another thing is sometimes the buyers are negotiating added value. Many times their no charge spots are being negotiated at the same time as that cash ad. And, if somebody is only looking at the bottom line of a total invoice that comes in, hey, yeah, we're expecting $1,000 to come in and we got an invoice for $1,000. Well, that doesn't tell the true story. We might be missing, a third of the schedule that was a no charge, or maybe those no charges were supposed to run from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we're finding out that they're running at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, not having the eyeballs on those ads that we anticipated. And so, this gives you the ability to make sure that if those no charge spots are built into the schedule when it's placed, that, hey, we're getting those. And it all goes back to holding those vendors accountable. I mean, I always said that, if my reps knew that I wasn't auditing those invoices, they would try to get away with everything, because, they probably have been getting away with everything up to that point. Once they know they're being audited, they're going to communicate a lot more with you. They're going to tell you, hey, this spot got missed. Let's make it good really quick. Hey, we had some technical issues, so that we can get those ads back in the schedule within the flight, even if possible, sometimes even in the next day or two, so that we make sure that, those GRPs that we ordered, those spots and those dollars that we ordered are getting all put back into the schedule, if at all possible. I want to pause. Are there any questions? I don't know if there's anything that's come in on the chat, Lori.
Not just yet. I have one question. It's not really a question, more of a comment. And you may get into this, so if you do, I apologize. But a lot of our members are also doing a lot of print or B2B or web. I'm assuming that this commentary that you're providing, I know we're focusing a little bit on broadcast today, but that applies across all media, and the same capability to track whether we're talking B2B or print or web, et cetera. I mean, it's something that you would obviously support, do it across all media.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do it across all media. Media outside of broadcast is more just kind of aligning that, hey, the ad happened, that dollar amount was appropriate for the month. Were we short? Were we over? On the broadcast side, I failed to mention that I know back in the day, there weren't electronic capabilities of doing it. It was all manual data entry, dates, times, rates, spot counts. And we've come a long way since then, and broadcast has the ability you can import those invoices. They're coming from a lot of sources like tvinvoices.com, radioinvoices.com, ampersand. These are free services to the agency, so most software platforms have the ability to ingest that data. I know we even have, I think it's Marketron and some other stewardship programs that do their own thing, that can be electronically imported into a lot of systems. I always say, the problem with, if it's a problem, the problem with a lot of the non-broadcast is, the broadcast industry kind of, powwowed and said, hey, we need a standard set of file types and a standard layout that we will accept. But when you're getting it from print, they haven't gotten together and said, hey, this is how we want to do it electronically. So a lot of that stuff's going to be manual. For print, out of home, digital, those can be entered manually. And it can be just as minimal as, hey, we're putting an invoice number in for the month for the vendor, what that dollar amount is, maybe how many impressions we actually achieved, so that tracking can be full circle to know, hey, this is what we placed, this is what we received on that invoice. Are we over? Are we under? Maybe, at least for digital, that's kind of an ever moving target that might fluctuate from month to month, but as long as we're whole in the end, we might have a little blip in, hey, our dollar amounts are a little higher one month, the next month it's a little less, but if it comes out in the wash, we're satisfied, right? So yeah, all of those things in our platform can be entered manually if there's not an electronic option to do that.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay,
Well, if there
so
aren't
go ahead, Heather.
any questions, I'm going to pass this on to Kevin. And I'm driving, so Kevin, just let me know to advance to
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready for the next slide.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So in addition to reconciling the invoices for all the very important reasons that Heather mentioned, and there's several, as you heard, you really want to take it to the next step, and that would be the post-buy reconciliation. So first, as Heather mentioned, did they run correctly? With were the times correct? Were the dollar amounts correct, etc.? Now that you've got all that information in there, well, then did it deliver as far as your projected GRPs and or impressions, right? So you want to do that post-buy analysis. So after the spots ran, did your client get the bang for their buck? Because we all know, you're paying a lot of money for some of these programs, if it's television that you're looking at, or certain day parts, if it's radio, etc. So you want to take a look at that to say, okay, what were our projected GRPs and impressions versus the actual once the books come out? So ideally, your agency would have a subscription to Nielsen or ComScore to have access to that data. And platforms such as ours will integrate with that data and then allow you to run the post-buy analysis report. And one thing that's nice about the post-buy analysis report, particularly in our platform, is that you can really slice it and dice it in different ways. So number one, you're not relying on the stations to provide that post-buy analysis for you. So they're in control. Now you're in control. So you can look at it different ways. Do you want to look at one specific station at a time? Do you want to look at all of the stations together to see an overall delivery? Or do you want to, like I said, look at it one particular station at a time? You can also slice it and dice it. Do you want to see a weekly delivery? Do you want to see a weekly post, even a day part post, right? And then you also have options to look at line by line detail. So you can actually take a look, was there a particular program, for example, that was way off on, the actual versus the projected? So maybe it's one particular program throwing things off, or maybe it's one particular time period, etc. So you can look at it in a very general method, like overall, or you can get down to, I guess, the nitty gritty, if you will, to look at that line by line detail. So that's the advantage of not only having access to the ratings data, but also having to process that through a platform. So again, you're the one in control. You're picking which data set you're going to look at, et cetera. Do you want to look at GRPs? Do you want to look at impressions? Do you want to look at both at the same time? So that, allows you that control and the flexibility. And then go ahead to the next slide, Heather. Now, Heather and I have been doing this long enough to remember when the post-buy, that was it. That was the last step. You were done. Well, now thanks to technology and Google Analytics, you can also look at a spot attribution, model. Now, our platform does integrate with Google Analytics. Now, this would be, again, for traditional linear, TV and radio, cable, etc. But when you integrate with the Google Analytics and then you have your invoices entered into the platform, so the platform knows the exact days and times that your spots ran, you can run a report that will show you it'll overlay your client's web traffic with those spot days and times. And you can, again, some of this you can get from an individual station, but again, you're at their mercy, at their control. This also allows you to look at all of the stations in the buy at the same time. Now, this is a chart, and the reason it's color coded is because it's color coded by station. And then the lines represent the web hits. So is there a lift in web traffic when you are running these broadcast spots? Also, does a particular day or time of day matter? Now, there's a lot of flexibility with this Google Analytics. You can look at it on a week by week level, day by day level, even hour by hour. And you can even, again, kind of customize it. Is there one particular station that does seem to give a heavier lift to web traffic? Is there one particular day part, et cetera, that's, again, giving that heavier lift, or maybe not the lift that you want it to? And again, this is important to show to the advertiser, to show to your client, hey, this is what's happening with our broadcast. Broadcast, sometimes, nowadays, a lot of people want to focus on digital, but broadcast is still very important. And a lot of our clients do use this Google Analytics attribution model to show their clients how important traditional broadcast still is, and how it still affects, overall web traffic. And so I'm open, Heather and I are open to questions on, the post-buy analysis or the attribution model. We'd love to talk about anything in more detail with everyone.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I think a lot of great information, a lot of points for why this is important, not only to agencies in terms of making sure that the client's money, because that's really what it is when we're dealing with media dollars, the client's money is being spent appropriately, but then also the benefit to you and the client relationship. You're advocating for them, you're making sure that, things are happening as they should. So lots of great insight here. Let's open it up to questions or comments. I wrote down a couple things here, but I will not go first. Let's just turn it over to the group. Would anyone like to ask anything or share some insight, from your own experience, or ask Heather and Kevin some specific questions? And don't be shy.
And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Right, right.
We don't fight, we promise.
Right. Well, most of them know me. They know I won't hesitate to call on them. All right, I'm going to start calling. Anybody here from an agency, let me just ask this question. Anybody here from an agency that places a significant amount of media? Let me see a thumbs up, or come on camera and just say yes.
Well, I'm not coming on camera.
That's fine, Kristen.
but I place a significant amount, and all I want to say is that the attribution part is new to me, and I certainly bug you guys enough with emails asking questions, but I think that I definitely want to schedule a one-on-one or two-on-one, two-on-three with our team to kind of walk through that process, because that's new to me. But I'd love to hear more about it and learn how to use it.
Absolutely.
For all of us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and honestly, the way it integrates it's pretty seamless. There's not a lot of setup involved at all.
Right.
It's just basically connecting to your GA or your client's GA account. And that's pretty much it. And then, like I said, then once those invoices are entered into the platform, then yeah, you can look at that model and overlay those spot times, again, with the web traffic. So it's a pretty seamless integration, honestly. It's worked out very well.
Well, and fantastic. And how smart do we look? I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And again, sometimes you have to be the cheerleader for traditional broadcast, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's not good. It's not going to go away. We still watch TV. We still listen to the radio. I do, at least. So it's not going away. So you can, help how it shows the overall media mix, right? So you're not just placing broadcast, you're placing digital, probably out of home and print, all the above.
Mm-hmm.
So this just, again, adds to that overall media mix and justifies this is why we distribute your media dollars the way we do.
Right. Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I liked that too in terms of the connection, being able to show how that needle is being moved. So, Amber, you put your thumb up. I know that you guys are placing a lot of media, broadcast or otherwise. Tell me a little bit, are you guys reconciling? What did you take away from the presentation? Any questions that you might have?
I guess one question I have is outside of connecting to Google Analytics, are you able to connect to any other platforms like Improve, TapClicks?
We don't have current integrations with those. Now, as a company, we're open to integrations. And it also needs to be said too, we also have accounting integrations, which these invoices, once you match them up, we do integrate with certain accounting packages that you can then send them from our platform into, Workmajig or QuickBooks or, some other accounting platforms. So that's another part of kind of the reconciliation and post-buy. But as far as any type of, other integrations out there that kind of do more analyzation like Google Analytics, we're open to ideas.
And in terms of accounting platforms, like do you connect with Advantage at all?
So we don't have a direct API connection, but we do have an integration as far as basically kind of a file download and then upload into Advantage. We do have a client currently using that integration with Advantage. It's just not a direct API connection.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had one question for the two of you. So obviously, subscribing to the Nielsen or the ComScore data that makes this a much more a much better process because you're getting the actual ratings data and information. Now, a lot of agencies would say that's expensive. So subscribing to that data, whether it's for my market or multiple markets, et cetera, obviously you would advocate that they do, but can effective reconciliation be done without access to that data? And I guess what you implied earlier is then you have to get that from your rep.
Yeah, I mean, you can still audit invoices and make sure that the schedule's running properly, making sure that your dollars are being appropriately spent, making sure that that traffic is correct. I used to buy for a small regional utility, and they're buying all outer market radio that wasn't even measured, but I still wanted to know that those schedules were running correctly. So, so if there were, variances there, things ran out of time period, a lot of times I could get make goods or freebies for my client. And it doesn't always have to hinge on, did we get the delivery for the rating points? I'm kind of a firm believer in, as a buyer, I never really wanted to take the station's word for it because everybody can be number one at something, right?
Right.
And you can make your numbers look as great as you want. So that's really why it's encouraged that you pull your own posts. I mean, you can get those from the stations if need be. But, I always say, that's like me giving myself my own report card, right? I'm going to make myself look in the best light as possible. Whereas if it's agnostic, the agency is pulling it. I want to know how I did outside of any sort of influence from the station. But no, it's not a requirement to do that next step of posting. We have a lot of clients that still do the audit process, but don't take that next step just because, affordability to subscribe to that ratings data just really isn't in the cards. They can still get that delivery from the stations if need be, if that's something that the client's asking for. But bottom line, at least they know that their dollars are being spent in the right time periods and on the right programs. And, like I said, creative is running correctly because, hey, if I'm running an ad after a sale ends, then it's no good to my client, right? So yeah, it does give you a more full circle view, but it's not necessarily a requirement.
Okay.
And I will mention also the attribution model does not require any type of ratings.
Yeah.
It's just times and dates. So yeah,
Okay.
for the post, as far as, did we get the GRPs we projected? Yeah, you would really need access or they would have to supply you with quarter hour ratings, you'd have to manually look. But the attribution model, no data services required.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
And if I could add to that too, in our platform, we don't even require that you've done the matching process. As long as that invoice is imported and matched up to the correct advertiser and station, you don't even have to do all of the discrepancy portion. If you just wanted to, hey, I got all my April invoices in, I want to pull that attribution model, I can do that even before I've done all the detail invoice matching, just to kind of see where that lift happened, because all we really need to have are those dates and times to know, when the ads actually aired to pull that attribution.
Got it. And that attribution can be overlaid with more than just broadcast or just specifically broadcast?
Right now, it's just broadcast at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good additional insight there. So other questions? We've still got a little bit of time if anyone would like to ask something or share something.
We love feedback.
Don't make me say Bueller.
Right. I feel like that sometimes. All right. Well, if not, that is perfectly fine. This is the first webinar that we've done together with Galeforce. We intend to do more. So we're going to, knock out a few more of these this year on different topics. So we look forward to having you here for those. So we'll market those and get those in front of you with the dates once we get all of that figured out. I think this was a great start, great information, something that I think everybody can relate to, regardless of what media, they are placing or types of media. I think it is a good reminder that we just can't take for granted, that when we do something that it's going to happen. I think as agencies, we are responsible for making sure what we say we're going to do happens, not only to protect ourselves, but to protect our clients. So this is another thing that you can do to make sure that we are delivering on what we promise to our clients. And if the media is not upholding their end of the bargain, then you got to talk to them about that, and maybe you'll get some value add thrown in.
Yeah, and I'll just
the deal.
add anecdotally. This is strictly anecdotally, but my stint at the station I worked at, and this kind of goes with the posting, that we talked about. If you have access to that data, I just remember when I was working at the station, I received very, very, very few orders that would have spots allocated for under delivery, which told me either our station was just killing it on the projections or people weren't posting. So I think I only remember like getting in one order that included an delivery. So it's important to, whether it's just, without even posting, if you reconcile and things were missed or wrong, to go back to that station and say, hey, you under delivered, and what can we do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. My guess is, Kevin, it was probably the latter. A lot of people not auditing. Nothing
I would like
against
to
your
think the
station.
station, the station
But
hit all the
nobody's that
projections,
perfect.
yeah. I'd like to think that, but yeah, I doubt that was the case every time.
Right. So, all right. Well, Kevin, Heather, thank you so much for being here today and for presenting this material. We look forward to having you here again. And everybody, I'm going to share contact information for Heather and Kevin via email. And you know where to find me if you have questions. And now you know where to find them if you have questions for them. So thanks again, everybody, for being here. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, guys.
Heather, Kevin, if you want to stay on for a moment after everybody logs off, we just chat. I turned off the recording.
Sure.
At least I think I did.